I moved into my house in Illinois about 6 months ago. It's a small one-story place on the edge of a quiet neighborhood. The kind of street where people wave from their driveways, but nobody really knows each other beyond first names. I like that. I'd been living in apartments for years, and the idea of finally having my own space, without neighbors stomping, yelling, or slamming doors, felt like heaven. For the first couple of weeks, I didn't really unpack much. I set up my bedroom and put together a small table in the living room. Everything else sat in boxes. I'm a night owl, and between work and insomnia, I was routinely awake until 1 or 2 a.m., scrolling or watching videos, with a lamp on next to my bed. It was around 1 a.m. on a Tuesday when this happened. I remember because I just plugged in my phone and saw the time flash on the lock screen. I was lying on my bed when I heard something outside my bedroom window. Not a noise. A voice. At first it was so quiet I wasn't sure I heard anything at all. A soft, slow whisper. I actually paused the video I was watching, thinking maybe it was something from the audio that bled through after I hit pause. Then I heard it again. Jeff. My entire body went cold. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't even spoken normally. It sounded as if someone were standing right outside the window, whispering toward the glass. I froze. No one should have known my name. I hadn't even introduced myself to the neighbors yet. The only people who had my address were my family, and none of them lived within 30 minutes of me. I slowly turned my head toward the window, but the curtains were drawn. I couldn't see anything outside. The house was silent. The air felt thick. I waited. 10 seconds, maybe 15. Then, barely above a breath, I heard, "Jeff, come here." Something in the tone made my skin crawl. Not threatening, not angry, intentional, calm, like someone trying very carefully not to wake the rest of the house. My first instinct was to grab my phone. I sat up slowly and reached toward the nightstand, keeping my eyes on the curtain. Then the voice spoke again. "I see your light on." My chest tightened. There was no way for someone outside to know that, unless they were standing almost directly in front of my window. I didn't move. For a few long seconds, there was no sound. Then I heard slow footsteps in the grass. Soft, deliberate, moving along the side of the house toward the backyard. I got out of bed, quietly locked my bedroom door, and dialed 911. I whispered to the operator what was happening. She told me to stay on the line and not leave the room. While I was talking to her, I heard the footsteps again, this time near the back door. Then the handle rattled, not violently, not forcefully, just tested, like someone checking to see if it was unlocked. I felt sick. The operator told me officers were on the way. The rattling stopped, and for the next minute, everything was silent again. When police arrived, maybe 7 minutes later, they searched the yard, the street, even a few neighboring driveways. Nothing. One officer asked if I'd recently moved in. I told him yes. Then he asked if I'd told anyone I was moving to that exact address. No, only family. He looked unsettled when I said that. He told me, "It's strange someone knew your name." Strange was an understatement. For the next few nights, I slept with the bedroom light on, curtains drawn tight, and every door locked twice. Eventually, things went back to normal, and nothing like that ever happened again. But sometimes, late at night when it's quiet and I'm up past midnight, I think about that whisper and how the man outside knew my name when nobody else should have. Back in college, I worked the midnight shift at a gas station just off the interstate. It wasn't a dangerous area, but it wasn't exactly friendly either. Lots of truckers, people passing through, a few sketchy types who wandered in after midnight. The manager always said night shifts were mostly boring, and he wasn't wrong. The store had an old security system with a tiny monitor behind the counter. It showed the front of the store in grainy, black and white video that was maybe 3 frames per second. You couldn't actually identify anyone from it, but you could tell if someone was in the aisle. I usually spent the shift stocking shelves, cleaning the counters, and trying not to fall asleep. Customers were rare after 2 a.m. One night, around 2:15, a tall guy in a hoodie walked in. He didn't say anything, just wandered up and down the aisle slowly. I noticed he wasn't really looking at anything, just moving. He eventually came to the counter and asked for a pack of cigarettes. His voice was low and steady, didn't look at me much. I turned to grab the cigarettes off the shelf behind me, and as I did, something caught my eye in the monitor. A shape right behind me, not the man in front of me. Something else. A tall, dark figure standing directly behind me in the grainy feed, like someone was inches from my back. I spun around immediately. Nothing there. My heart was pounding. I glanced back at the monitor, and the figure was still standing exactly where I had been seconds earlier. Head down, shoulders squared, like it was staring at the back of my head. The customer saw the monitor too. His expression changed instantly. "Dude," he whispered. "Who is that?" I stepped out from behind the counter so the monitor could show the empty space more clearly. The figure didn't move, didn't fade, didn't glitch away. It stayed right there behind the counter, frozen in place. The guy in front of me slowly backed away, eyes locked on the screen. He left the cigarettes on the counter and walked out of the store without another word. I reached for the phone to call my manager, and as I picked it up, the figure on the monitor turned its head slightly, toward the camera. Just a small motion, but enough. I dropped the phone. I couldn't make out the details of its face, but I swear there were empty spaces where the eyes should have been, just dark hollows. At that point, I unplugged the monitor entirely. The entire system flickered, and the figure on the screen distorted, stretched, before the monitor went black. I stood there frozen for what felt like forever. Eventually, I called my manager from the front phone and told him the system was malfunctioning. I didn't mention the figure. I didn't want to sound insane at 2 a.m. I quit the next day. About a month later, the gas station burned down and what they said was an electrical fire. Nobody was hurt, and nobody ever brought up anything about the cameras or weird footage. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that figure, staring at the back of my head in that flickering, grainy footage. And the worst part? It wasn't a glitch. Glitches don't turn their heads. My uncle owns a farm in rural Nebraska. He bought the land more than 20 years ago, and the house that sits on the property is old but cozy. Creaky floors, wood panel walls, and a bedroom upstairs that overlooks a huge open field. Across that field, maybe 400 yards away, is another old farmhouse, but that one isn't cozy. It's abandoned. No electricity, no windows, no driveway leading to it. Just a remaining rectangle of foundation and a dark, gaping doorway facing my uncle's property. My uncle always told me not to look at that house after midnight. It became a running joke between us, something he'd say as I was heading upstairs. "Stay out of that window after 12, he'd mutter. I'd roll my eyes. I thought he was trying to freak me out. One night, around 12:30, I woke up to get water. My room was dimly lit by the moon coming through the thin curtains. As I walked past the window, I glanced out at the field like I always did. And that's when I noticed something strange. The doorway of the abandoned house wasn't completely dark. There was movement, a subtle shift, like someone was standing inside, pacing just out of view. I pressed closer to the window, squinting. The movement stopped. Then, and I swear this is true, the shape in the doorway slowly turned its head toward me. I jumped back, heart racing. I closed the curtain immediately and stood there listening to the silence of the room, my pulse thudding so loud I could barely hear. I waited a few minutes before peeking again. The doorway was empty. I thought maybe I was imagining it or sleep was messing with me, until I heard footsteps behind me in the hallway. My uncle's voice, low and serious. "You shouldn't look at that house this late." He startled me so badly I nearly fell backward. I asked him what he meant, what he'd told me all those nights, but he didn't answer. He just placed a hand on my shoulder, squeezed gently, and walked downstairs. The next morning I asked again. This time he sighed and sat down across from me at the table. He told me the abandoned house belonged to a family that went missing 30 years ago. Police found blood in the kitchen. No bodies, no traces. The case went cold. Neighbors claimed they saw figures in the doorway of that house late at night, just standing there, watching the field. And then my uncle said something I will never forget. They only appear when someone in this house is awake after midnight. That's why I tell you not to look. I stayed one more night. I didn't look out the window, but I could feel something out in that field, a presence, like the doorway across the field wasn't just an opening, it was an invitation.